Welcome to this explainer. Today we are going completely behind the curtain. We're going to reveal the highly structured, almost entirely invisible engine that powers literally every single business you interact with on a daily basis. It's this fascinating world of unseen orchestration, and it's basically what makes modern commerce possible. I want you to really think about some of the everyday stuff we all just completely take for granted. Picture your perfect, flaky morning pastry from the local cafe, or that incredibly complex smartphone sitting right there in your pocket. Ask yourself, what kind of chaotic processes had to be perfectly managed, timed, and executed to seamlessly deliver those products directly into your hands? Well, the answer to that is exactly what we're uncovering today. So, here's our roadmap for demystifying all of this. We'll define the invisible engine, map out the production process, explore the different types of production, decode location decisions, and finally, look at how resource planning pulls the whole shebang together. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the invisible engine. What exactly is operations management? Simply put, operations management, or OM for short, is the absolutely critical process of planning, organizing, and supervising the creation of goods or services. It's basically taking raw, basic inputs and transforming them efficiently into the finished products that you and I expect. It is the core of ensuring that business operations aren't just happening, but that they're cost-effective and totally aligned with what the market actually demands. Now, as you can see, OM isn't just for dusty factories. It's literally everywhere. In healthcare, it dictates life-saving patient flow. In retail, it manages all that inventory. Heck, even your favorite massive music festival relies totally on OM to keep the chaos organized. To bring this down to earth, let's go back to that morning pastry and look at a local bakery. The operations manager there, they're wearing a dozen hats to make sure you get fresh bread on time. They're doing everything from ordering the exact right amount of ingredients, which is inventory management, to ensuring the heavy ovens and mixers are actually maintained. They're scheduling shifts and running quality control so that the bread isn't just on time, it's absolutely delicious. Which brings us nicely to Section 2, the production process. How do we actually make these things sequentially? It turns out pretty much every production process on Earth follows a highly logical four-step sequence. You start with your raw inputs, you run them through a conversion process to transform them, you get your final outputs, and, this is key, you close the loop with feedback and control, which managers use to constantly improve future efficiency. Now, a quick aside here, when we say inputs, it's much more than just physical raw materials like wood, metal, or plastic. A production system relies just as heavily on human resources and skills. It relies on the capital used to buy heavy machinery, the technical designs guiding the process, and the literal energy, the electricity and fuel, keeping the lights on and the belts moving. And that leads us perfectly into the conversion phase. This is the real core of production, where those inputs undergo physical changes, processing, and strict quality checks. It's the magical step of taking something like raw cotton, spinning it into fabric, using machines and labor to cut it, and stitching it into the exact t-shirt you might be wearing right now. All right, now that we know the basic steps, let's look at Section 3, types of production, where we scale things up. This brilliant matrix categorizes production into 4 totally distinct types based on volume and customization. Up at the top, you have job production. These are one-off, highly custom items, like bespoke designer furniture. Next is batch production, like our bakery making groups of identical muffins together. Then we hit mass production, the large-scale, highly repetitive manufacturing of stuff like smartphones. And finally, at the absolute extreme, you've got continuous production, the non-stop, 24/7, ultra-high-volume output you'd see in an oil refinery where the process literally cannot stop. So, we know how it's made, but where on earth should we build the factory? Let's decode that in Section 4, location decisions. Facility location is honestly one of the most critical decisions a business will ever make, mainly because it's staggeringly expensive to change once the concrete is poured. That is exactly why companies obsess over these specific factors. They have to weigh the proximity to raw materials, like putting a heavy cement factory right next to a limestone quarry to save on shipping. They also have to weigh local infrastructure, availability of skilled labor, government taxes, and even the local climate. To see this in action, just look at the massive global players. Apple strategically builds iPhones in China specifically to access unparalleled supply chain hubs and vast pools of highly skilled manufacturing labor. On the flip side, a company like Nestlé will place their production plants right next to rural dairy farms. Why? Because their primary input is fresh milk, and minimizing the time and distance between the cow and the factory is a total game changer for cost and quality. To avoid total chaos, managers really have to orchestrate this massive system. Let's look at our final section, Section 5, Resource Planning. This is where resource planning comes in. It's the ultimate balancing act. We're talking about the complex process of figuring out exactly what materials and labor you need, exactly how much, and exactly when and where they need to be deployed to perfectly meet customer demand without missing a single beat. And getting this demand forecast right is absolutely crucial. I mean, failing to plan effectively leads directly to a host of nightmares for a business. You end up with costly overproduction, making stuff literally no one is buying, or underproduction, which just leads to angry customers. And perhaps worst of all, it results in wildly high costs from paying for idle machinery and workers just standing around waiting for parts. Nobody wants that. Today, this entire field is rapidly evolving to eliminate those exact inefficiencies. Modern operations management is being revolutionized by AI and robotic automation handling the repetitive tasks. We're seeing wide adoption of lean management to systematically strip away every ounce of waste. Companies are shifting to just-in-time inventory systems, where parts arrive the very second they're needed. And there is a massive, necessary push for sustainability through green logistics and eco-packaging. Which leads us to a really fascinating final thought to leave you with today. We've seen how structured and vital this invisible engine is. But as robotics, AI, and advanced algorithms increasingly take over the heavy lifting and the repetitive tasks of production, how will human ingenuity and leadership redefine the future of operations management? It's a huge question every business leader is going to have to answer. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, keep an eye out for that invisible engine in everything around you.